excited today to have Susie Elder Murphy, Nina Herndon, and Emily Apyan. And I hope I pronounced everybody's last names correctly. But we are really excited to have another live and interactive roundtable discussion with aging life care managers. And as we usually do, let's first get to know the three of you a little bit better. Nina, since you're on my left on my screen, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into this profession.
Terrific, will do. Thank you so much for having me, Steve. My background is in gerontology. I have a practice called Sage Eldercare Solutions in the San Francisco Bay Area that I've been at for 25 years. And we have really worked hard to solve problems for older adults and their families.
I love it. And Emily, I've got you right below Nina on my screen. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to this profession.
Hi, good afternoon, Steve, and everybody out there. My name is Emily, and my background is this is a second career for me, to be frank. I started out my undergraduate degree is in architecture, not really anything to do with older adults, frankly. And then I decided that I wanted to pivot and do something else. I wanted my master's degree. I got a master's degree in social work, and with an emphasis in working with older adults from the University of Southern California. And then I went into doing social work and skilled nursing, and I worked in skilled nursing. I worked in independent living. I worked in assisted living, decided that I wanted to work in management. I became an administrator. I had my own community. I was an executive director. I did that for a little while, and I did that throughout COVID, and then decided that I had 4 children, and I think I might want to see some of them occasionally and that I wanted to do something a little bit different with my education and my experience of both understanding the regulations, understanding the social work side of things, being able to meet clients where they are, whether that's in a facility, whether that's skilled nursing, assisted living, independent living, or at home or in the hospital, and being able to help them achieve what they define as their goals and what they think means successful. And so that's how I really got into wanting to explore the idea of care management and how to help clients be successful.
I love it. Wow, what an interesting path. And we're glad that the architecture profession doesn't have you anymore. And last but not least, Susie and Susie, I want to thank you for literally pinch hitting for another care manager that had a personal emergency. I'm so glad that we're able to add you to this panel today. But tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure, happy to help. And like Emily, I came from a very different background. The first business that I owned was a bakery. And when I sold my bakery, the attorney that I used for the sale of the bakery introduced me to Deborah Levy, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I've been doing this, actually this month, I celebrate my 32nd anniversary with Aging Well Elder Care, and our company is 37 years old. We have a staff of nurses, social workers, and gerontologists, but really I think what describes our company best is our tagline, which is we're like wedding planners for aging well, because everybody has different budgets, preferences, ideas of what they want, what their preferences are, and we just help them match them with the right resources.
I love that. I share your tagline frequently when I'm describing this profession, and I kind of choose my audience wisely. I either say, it's kind of like a wedding planner for growing older, or it's sort of like a quarterback. It all depends on who my audience is. Well, with that, that's a great transition. Nina, would you like to take a crack at kind of, especially for those that may be tuning in that are not familiar with this profession, before we kind of dive into our discussion, let's learn what is an aging life care manager, what's the profession, and folks, I'm going to drop the definition of that off the aging life care website into chat. But Nina, you want to take a crack at the definition?
Sure, absolutely. So I would say aging life care managers are experts in the field of aging who hail from a range of different disciplines, from gerontology, social work, nursing, counseling, psychology, PT, OT, and more. Our expertise is really around problem solving. In a nutshell, that is what we are doing, regardless of what the issue may be. We're adept at navigating issues from legal, financial issues related to care and care planning, housing, the crisis intervention after a new diagnosis, health and disability and benefits, as well as really importantly, connecting people with local resources to bring resources to bear to make the journey easier, not only for the older adult, but also their family, and in doing so, improve the quality of their care. And especially a big thing near and dear to my heart is the quality of their lives.
I love it. You did a great job of, I learn so much every time I do these on how people explain the profession. Emily or Susie, anything to add to that definition, and then we can kind of jump in to our discussion.
I would say one thing that's really important for all of us on this call here, we're all members of the Aging Life Care Association and our code of ethics. We all follow that same code of ethics, and one of the main things that separates us from all the folks out there is that we don't have a financial relationship with any resource we recommend. And I know many of us explain that to potential clients when they first contact us. But I think it is a really important question because there are so many people out there in the world who, make their business by being paid by the referral source. And we're hired by you to help you and come up with the solutions that are right for you. And I think that sets us apart. And for a lot of our clients, they say, yes, that's why we hired you, is we really like knowing that you're going to be independent and
Great.
objective in the advice you give.
Thanks for
Excellent
bringing
points.
that up, Susie. And I dropped in the code of ethics link on into chat there. Um, Okay, well, this is the part I really like is that what I'm going to do is sort of go around the little Brady Bunch thing here, and I just like kind of getting a glimpse at what you all see as tips, trends, ideas that might help our community better serve themselves, their family members, or if they're a professional in the community, what can they do to better work with aging life care managers? And I'll just keep on going in order, at least at start. So, Emily, would you like to sort of take first crack at some of the things that you're seeing out there?
I think one thing that we're seeing, or I'm seeing a lot more of now than I've seen in the past, is we're seeing a lot more solo agers that are reaching out to us that we haven't historically seen. And so that's individuals that are aging somewhat independently without the assistance or support of an extended family. And so they're reaching out to us because they want us to join in their journey and be able to support them for whatever their needs may be currently or in the future, and they're trying to plan for that future. And so we're seeing, or I'm seeing more of that at ElderTree, and we're located in Metro DC. We're seeing more and more of that recently. And we're also seeing as care management is developing more and more, we're seeing more of a need for cultural competency in a diverse community of people thinking care management. And so that is something that we're seeing and is very important.
Yeah, and again, this sort of positive label of solo aging, unlike the earlier label that was called elder orphans, is really getting people not to getting people off the mark to sort of make plans in advance. And I'm delighted that it's encouraged more advanced planning. Look, I know this is, and this is a question for all three of you, but because I know all three of your practices are working with the solos and planning ahead. But oftentimes, the solo agers are concerned because they don't have healthcare, they don't have a proxy for healthcare or financial care. And do how do any of your firms work with those clients that might be in that situation?
Well, I can speak to for our practice. I very often the issue is not that they don't have somebody that they could lean on to make those decisions. It's that they don't want to encumber them with all of the different aspects of managing the care. So very often we'll identify someone who they trust implicitly, who is is not necessarily related, so they want to have the responsibility of being a decision maker be manageable. And so we'll come in and we'll partner with the person to say, look, the only thing we really need you to do is make the decisions. We're going to help you understand the fact patterns so you can make good decisions. We're going to guide you in a direction that we feel is consistent with this person's wishes. And very often we can find somebody before having to result to have a professional who's paid in that role.
And when you do find that person, it's less of a burden on them
Yes, they don't have to, drop
because
work and fly
they
across the
have,
country. Mhm. Or whatever it may be.
man, great response. Thank you. I'm going to be using that tonight at 6 o'clock when I talk about solo aging. I really like that. Susie and Emily, have you found a similar approach in working with your solos?
We do both. So we do function, ElderTree does function as a healthcare proxy. We do not do financial proxy, but we do medical proxy for our clients. That is a service that we offer. It is a specific contract, and we can do that, and we go in and we talk about that. It's a very significant responsibility to do that with a client, but we get to know them. We talk about what that means. We understand what their wishes are, what it is that they want for themselves, how they truly feel about those things. We get to know that person over a period of time. But we also do very similar to what Nina talked about. We talk through that with them. Is there anyone that you know that you would want potentially to be that person for you? And sometimes we arrive at identifying who that person might be. Oftentimes we don't, or they've already gone through that sequencing and arrived there. And so we come in and talk with them. We get referrals from elder law attorneys who say, hey, look, we've gone through the list with our client and they don't have a person. And so we're reaching out to you.
Um, Great. Yeah, and you know what? One thing that all the experts say is that the most important thing is a trusting relationship with the person who bears that responsibility. So often people want to just pick up the phone and sort of like hire a company to handle these things without going through the process of developing a relationship. And that concerns me because that opens up a door for fraud and some pretty bad things to happen to the folks out there. So it's great to have you all as the advocate in this journey. Um,
I will tell you when I'm having those conversations with our clients, they're very intimate and very deep conversations. You're talking about the most significant decisions in a lot of cases that you're making for someone. Do you want us to make the decision to turn your ventilator off in the event that X happens? Do you want this? Do you want us to do this? So you are, in essence, making very important decisions for people. So it's real important that you get it right. So these are very, very intimate, very personal conversations, ones you have with your parents, ones you have with your siblings, but you're having them with, for lack of a better term, strangers that just called you and said, hi, my name is Mrs. Smith. I'm calling ElderTree. I'd like to talk to you about healthcare proxy.
mhm.
But very important.
Man. Okay, Susie, I'm going to go to you next, but before we've got a great question from where is it? Uh, Rebecca, she says, I'm living in Northwest Vermont. And I wonder if you know of any aging life care managers. So now what I'm going to do, Rebecca, it's almost like I paid you to do this. Let's do a search for, I'm going to show
Well,
everybody how
Steve,
easy it is to find an aging life care manager anywhere in the country. So
Steve,
we're at aginglifecare.org. That's the National Association website. You click on the orange button up there that says find an aging life care manager. And since I don't know the zip code, I'm going to go to advanced search, because if I do that, then I can basically say Burlington, and then I can select Vermont. And now I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, and
Steve,
let's see. And look, we got a an aging life care manager, Anne Marie Miner, in South Burlington, Vermont. And what I'm going to do is,
I already put that in the chat.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
It's so easy to do that I was able to do it in 2 minutes while Emily and Nina were speaking.
I
That's
love
amazing.
it. Well, I'm glad that I got to do the demo, because
Yes, I'm
sooner or
glad you
later
did
I was
too.
going to do
Yeah.
that. So thanks for doing that as well.
And,
Okay.
and frequently when people call us for referrals, it's helpful if we have the zip code, because then you get an even more specific listing of care managers that are right where you need them to be.
I
So
love it.
when people ask us, I frequently will just ask them for the zip code, and that'll help us find the right folks. But that's something that all of us as aging life care managers do, is if we're not the right person or we can't help you, we always try to find someone who can.
Yeah, well, Susie, you're on stage now. What are you seeing out there in your practice, or do you have any tips or suggestions for our community and audience?
Well, I would say that we see exponentially way more early onset neurological disorders than we did when I started doing this kind of work 32 years ago. Parkinson's, various forms of dementia, um, and some more unusual diagnoses, but typically neurological diagnoses. So that's one thing, and it's hard because you're 50, right? You maybe haven't even had a chance to buy long-term care insurance, and you were anticipating working for 10 or 15 years more. Um, so helping in those situations is something that we see a lot of. Of course, supporting solo agers, which we do through our Well Senior program, although it's not limited to solo agers. We have a number of married couples who are well seniors. That's proactive. I think people find that the landscape, when they look out at it, is so daunting. They feel like they just really need somebody to guide them. And in our area, the Metro Washington, D.C. area, I say they're building assisted livings like Starbucks. There's just one on every corner. And when you walk into any one of them, the main job of that marketing person is to convince you that this is the perfect place for you or for your parents or for your spouse. And just like if you walked into a Ford dealership, they are going to find you a Ford that works for you. They are never going to say, Steve, I really see you in a Subaru. I think you should go next door. I don't think you're going to be happy in a Ford. So we're lucky in the Metro DC area to have so many options, but it can be really difficult to sift through all those options and figure out what the right match is for you.
Well, you brought up two great talking points. The first, let's tackle the first, because I'm seeing the same thing. Is that, you know, when a family is faced with cognitive impairment, um, grab bars in the bathroom don't solve the problem. This is around the clock care, and it's progressive and challenging and what have you. What are some of the ways, and this is for all three of you, what are some of the ways that as aging life care managers, you assist families through that journey, um, when either they or their loved ones have a cognitive impairment?
There's a host of things. I would say sort of chief among them are working with people to address sort of lack of insight into their cognitive changes. And so if a family member is turning themselves inside out, trying to figure out how to get that person support, but they don't see a need for support, we really guide them through that process. I would say the other really valuable thing that comes up during those times is helping people, family members in particular, understand sort of some really helpful but basic tenets of communicating with a person living with dementia, in terms of not pointing out that you've answered that question before. And we sort of take a validation approach. And a lot of family members, you can think about the Thanksgiving table and how people sort of fall into their roles that they may have had, depending on birth order and their family of origin and all of that. And so helping people know that the way they've always talked to mom or dad, now that they have cognitive impairment, may not be nearly as effective. And we can diffuse a lot of frustration by just starting with some of those really basic but important things.
I agree with everything Nina just said. The other thing I always do, though, is I have the talk with the spouse that's seeking care for their spouse, because truly their most important job is taking care of themselves, because they're usually the linchpin of the entire care plan for their spouse. And if they disappeared off the face of the earth, it would fall in the lap of adult children or powers of attorney. So much as we're helping support and provide guidance to the families, we're always asking the care partner, are you getting to your doctor's appointments on time? Are you taking breaks for yourself? We have one wife whose husband has had just one crisis after another. He's been in and out of the hospital like 8 times since the beginning of the year. And she's really feeling burnt out. And so I suggested, why don't you plan like a day trip to spend with a friend, like in Baltimore. You're not going all the way to Hawaii to get a break. You're just going, an hour away and spending a day and letting the caregivers who are there to care for your spouse care for him, and gradually increase that to maybe a weekend away, but to get that break. And she really appreciated my suggesting that, and she's got it now on her radar.
It's almost like you need somebody like a care manager to give you permission to do that without feeling the guilt. I mean, the amount of guilt that the families we work with are so significant. Okay. Now, Nina, I want to ask you about some trends, but then I'd like to go back to the second thing that Susie brought up, is to move or not to move, and how aging life care can help with that transition if it's something that's appropriate. But Nina, any trends or things that you're seeing in your practice?
Well, yes. I mean, historically, people had come to us really with like their proverbial hair on fire. And so it's very crisis driven. And as we shift to our older adults becoming sort of leading edge baby boomers, we're seeing more people who are thinking kind of like Susie was referencing earlier, oh, I'm thinking of moving into a continuing care retirement community. Is that right for me? Or I'm planning to age at home. Do I have the means to do so? And if I do, then who am I going to call when I actually need the care? Because making the decision to age in place is a decision, it's not a plan. And so really kind of assigning details to what they're going to do once there is an actual need. Is an important part of what we've been doing lately. And it's been a very different energy because I think people who are thinking about these things are carrying these worries. Like, how do I make sure my experience isn't like what I witnessed my parents go through? Or they're worried about potential conflict within their adult children and want to circumnavigate that so peace reigns supreme. So those are the kinds of things that I'm seeing more and more of, and people are often very relieved to have this conversation and not dreading it like you might think.
I love it. This is a really positive trend. Okay, let's dive into some of these questions before the list gets too deep. And I do see a few questions on choosing senior housing, so we'll circle back to that. But okay, um, Eric says, I don't like to burden anyone to take care of me. I had an experience taking care of my parents through cancer and dementia. I'm very confident I can do it alone. However, who will take care of me when the time arises? Eric, thank you. The fact that you're on this discussion and that you're asking a question like this, I think our entire panel will say you're already 10 steps ahead of uh, all the other folks that are scared to even have a conversation like that. But what are some words of wisdom we might give Eric? Anyone?
I mean, I
Whoops.
think asking the questions and then talking about thinking for yourself, like, well, what does that mean to you? What does aging look like for you? There are so many different options. Do you want to age in place? Meaning, do you want to stay in the home where you currently live? Do you want to move into a smaller home? Do you want to live in a small assisted living facility? Do you want to live with your partner? Do you have a partner? Do you want to live with a sibling? Do you want to live with a cousin? Like, what does aging look like to you? What's important? Do you want to live in the countryside? Do you want to move back to quote home, whatever home means to you? There's no place like home. That's what Dorothy always said, but home's different for everyone, right? So figuring that out, and sometimes it's talking to an aging life care professional and then being able to walk that through with you and talking to you about what the different options are and sort of figuring that out for yourself. It's a great time when it's not an emergency, because a lot of times we get the emergency calls, right? There's some precipitating factor that led to the phone call, right? But when you don't have that precipitating factor, you can really sort through that and figure it out. And that's an amazing gift.
And one thing that comes up on all these roundtable discussions is most aging life care practices will have a 30-minute complimentary get to know you call because you all are looking for an appropriate match. And Eric, that can be a great opportunity to even define your view even better if you called two or three care management practices and sort of had those conversations. Uh, is am I okay in sort of
Yeah,
throwing that out? Okay.
because not everybody is the best fit for everyone, right? What, it is that is true, right, Steve? Like, you want to find what place feels the best, just like every community. That's why we take our clients to go visit every community, go there, see it, smell it, taste it, hear it, look at all the people there. How does it make you feel when you're there? The same thing with choosing your care manager. Does that person fit? Does that person make you feel comfortable?
Great. Okay. Um, oh wow, we have Mark Ash on the call, and he says, "How can we guide more individuals to think of how they want to age and put the proper documentation in place?" Healthcare advocate, this, that, and the other. Um, any words of wisdom? Mark is a professional in the field of aging, so
I mean, I think it starts with really making sure the professionals understand the value and the how. So, I don't know that there were professionals who were well positioned to have these conversations before aging life care managers began to take them on more and more often. And so it's sort of, I actually gave a talk this morning. It's beyond the advanced directive. Naming your proxy and deciding how heroic or not you want the measures to be, the medical interventions to be, is just the tip of the iceberg. So having those conversations is really important. So if the professionals out there can have a good understanding, A, that these conversations are super important, but B, where to go to have them is really, I think, the first step.
I love it.
I would agree. And I think a lot of times adult children themselves are not as, understanding of what the different documents are when somebody calls us, and we'll ask if they're healthcare or financial power of attorney for their parents. At least 50% of them, if not more, say, yep, I'm my mom's executor. And I'll be like, oh, that's good. So when she dies, like you'll be in charge, but as power of attorney, what is, do you know, have you been appointed, or who, what are their documents, what are your parents' documents, what do they say? And sometimes the adult children themselves haven't completed those documents, so I'm like, why don't you hire an attorney and say, let's do a twofer. We'll all go in and get it all settled. And also guiding people about where those documents should be kept. Sometimes people are so glad they've got it done with, and they put all the documents in their safe deposit box at the bank because they're really important and valuable. And I'm like, oh no, when that crisis comes, nobody's going to know where those documents are. So not only executing them, but making sure people who need copies or originals of your documents have them.
Yeah, no. Okay, Jonathan has a great question. What questions should I ask of when I'm interviewing an aging life care manager? Like, what are some of the questions that folks might ask that you think are appropriate?
I think it really depends on why you're looking for an aging life care manager. Then you come with a different set of questions. So I think that's the best for me, that it depends on what are you looking for from that person? What kind of support are you looking for? And that's going to drive the questions that you're going to ask. I think specifically around how they're servicing you, how they're billing you, what they're offering, if they're 24 hours, 7-day a week coverage, I think is a really important thing to understand. If it's one care manager that's assigned to you, or if it's whoever's available to you. Understanding what that relationship is like, understanding the history of their company, understanding the individual practitioner that you're hopefully going to primarily be working with is important to understand. What else, ladies? I'm trying to think of other like general questions that are not situational.
I think one is to really start with a member of the Aging Life Care Association who's already sort of met the criteria, to say like this person has the expertise to be able to deliver on the 8 knowledge areas that we talk about, are part of our wheelhouse as aging life care managers. So that's one thing, sort of maybe bears repeating. And then I think the other thing to think about is, in addition to everything you said, Emily, just it's a fit. I fully agree with you, to sort of get the litmus tests from your gut, and if it's a match. Once you've asked those other questions, which I did put a link in the chat to a list of questions that's provided by the association, but once you've got sort of the basics handled to make sure that they have the expertise, you want to make sure it's a fit.
And I'm glad you brought up the 8 knowledge areas. I'll drop this link into the website. It's on the Aging Life Care website. But I always find that this is very impressive. I mean, there's these 8 knowledge areas that Aging Life Care members focus on: health and disability, financial, housing, families, local resources, advocacy, legal, and crisis intervention. And as we can already see, these are all all the questions that we've been fielding intersect with those eight knowledge areas. So I think they're very well crafted. Um,
And I would just add, Steve, I agree with Emily and Nina, but I also think part of that fit that you mentioned, Nina, is finding somebody who you feel like is really listening to you and has heard what your concerns are. We have a woman who's referred a number of people to us. She called us probably 8 or 10 years ago and wanted to hire us to help her parents, and her parents would never agree. But she tried multiple times over a couple of years, and she talked to us, and we give her some suggestions and some help with the things she was going through. And she said, you know, you guys always made me feel better, even though I never even hired you. I always felt better after I talked to you. And so I give your name out to everybody because I think you're very helpful and compassionate. And I would say that's, you know, part of what led all of us to being aging life care managers.
okay, Gloria has a question. She's going back to the first thing we were talking about, the healthcare and financial proxies. And Nina had a great response on how her in her practice, the first sort of line is helping people and being support to the person that you find as a healthcare proxy. Emily shared that your practice will do, in if the situation is right, a healthcare proxy, but you can't do financial. And Susie, how does your firm deal with healthcare and financial proxies?
We are able to serve in certain situations. It just depends also on how many people we have already made that commitment to, so we don't overextend ourselves. But we're able to help anybody who's looking for someone to connect them with a professional, whether it's an attorney or accountant or someone. And frequently people will feel more comfortable serving in that role if they know that the person who's looking for it has a care manager there. A number of attorneys say, well, as long as you're the care manager, I'm happy to be your healthcare power of attorney, because really I'm just going to be calling Susie, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that to me is much more comfortable as well. Like it's minimizing the chance it's minimizing the chance that some kind of fraud or mismanagement could happen. I like that. Okay. All right. I had a good one here on okay. Joe says, do you think that some of these small residential assisted living homes are better, worse, or no different than the larger memory care communities? And he's asking this question regarding the DMV area, but Nina, I'm sure that you have some of the same models in California. They're nationwide. Do you have any opinions? But I think this is a great to open up a conversation about helping families find an appropriate home if they're going to make a move.
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly defer to the folks in the Mid-Atlantic area about what these look like in their areas. For us, these types of homes are considered board and care homes, and they really have an important place in the care ecosystem. Very often, they don't have a sign out front. The ratio of caregivers to residents is higher than can be the case sometimes in an assisted living community, a la Sunrise or Belmont Village or what have you. And so they can be a really great medium ground for people who need a high level of care, but in terms of the amount of support and supervision, support with activities of daily living, but really don't have a skilled need and so can avoid a skilled nursing facility if possible. So I really like boarding cares for that reason. For memory care, by nature of these little places, they tend not to have a huge budget. So it's really important to take a careful look at, what is the programming they offer, if any. And so if not there, then sort of how are you going to supplement it? I sort of worry about places, any of them, on the care continuum, who sort of position their community as all things to all people. People very often need to think about supplementing, and I know that sounds financially daunting in many cases, whatever it is that the community offers. And so I would say that's perhaps especially worth looking at a boarding care. But again, they're excellent for a higher level of need. In fact, when it came time for my own father, who had really advanced dementia, to be in a care community after I could no longer care for him at home. I had him at a boarding care, and it was lovely, and I'm still in touch with the people who work there today.
Susie and Emily, any sort of thoughts on this big picture, especially memory care, residential versus a larger community?
Yeah, I mean, I ran a large assisted living slash memory care. Assisted living and memory care are licensed in Virginia. Memory care is licensed under assisted living for the most part in Virginia, also in Maryland and DC. And so I think it really depends. Again, you have to talk with your client to see what is the best fit for them. And some clients are better with the smaller homes, the residential care facilities. The residential care facilities, the smaller homes, also fall under the same licensure in Virginia as an assisted living facility, and the way that it's licensed and all of that through the Department of Social Services, and all the licensure is the same, how they get their beds and all of that. Very, very similar. So I really think it depends on the client and what their needs are. And again, to Nina's point, from a programming perspective, the programming is going to be less in terms of maybe the amount of different types of programming they have, but the ratios of people that can actually engage one-on-one are going to be much better in the small communities. And you really have to go to each community and see what it's like, because I've had great experiences with my clients in the large communities, and I've had great experiences in the small communities. I've had some not so great experiences in the small communities and some not so great experiences in the large communities. So it's not a one size fits all. You really, and it's individual to the client.
Well, and Emily, I want to get some thoughts on this from Susie, but before we jump over there, I'm glad you brought up not so good experiences in any kind of care setting, because this is one of the reasons why I'm often encouraging aging life care people to have a relationship with an aging life care manager, because oftentimes the families don't know what is kind of normal in a setting. And if there is a problem, they don't have an advocate with them. Whereas if they have a relationship with an aging life care manager, now it can be, hey, Cindy, I was just giving you a call because I saw something that I thought was unusual. I don't think this should be this way. And it's like, you're right. Or, oh, you're right, but there's an asterisk here. We may need to bring in a special person to do pottery with your mom.
I'm
Any
from Tennessee, Steve, and what we say where I'm from is something ain't quite right. Okay, so they call you and go, something ain't quite right here. I
Yeah,
think I might need you to weigh in and tell me what you've seen before.
but Susie, any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, sometimes, we talk with our clients about different chapters of their lives. I've been talking to a daughter whose parents were in a larger community and they loved the all the activities and the socialization, and then they've both declined in health. Dad died last spring, and mom is now on hospice, and she's not going to bingo, she's not going to the sing-along, and she's paying, a huge fee plus private duty, so she's paying, over, close to $30,000 a month, and that's not sustainable in the long term. And we found a small group home 10 minutes from her, so she can see her mom more easily. And her mom isn't looking for that really high level of activity anymore.
Mhm.
Okay, I saw a question in here that was really good. It was, Gloria says, what are all of yours relationships like with physicians? Uh, Problem areas where caregivers need to defer to a medical doctor. How do aging life care managers work with people's physicians?
Great question. Um, I speak for myself. We work with physicians all the time. I would say we don't know all the physicians, but we know a lot of them. And if we don't know them, we know somebody who does know them, right? Especially when you're talking about the areas, the specialties that interface with the older adults, the gerontologists, the orthopedic surgeons, the neurologists, the cardiologists. Those physicians, we know most of them pretty well, and work with them on a regular basis. At least my team does, and my colleagues, other care managers that I know in this area. That's my experience. And also the concierge doctors. That's the other really important thing to bring up here. The concierge primary care doctors that go around and go into private homes and go into communities, a lot of them are really amazing, and they will go above and beyond for our clients and do things for us after hours, during business hours, but they will really pay attention to the clients, listen, and they take our opinions and what we have to say seriously. They know that we work with our clients and are really invested in their future outcomes. I have a lot of really great things to say about the concierge doctors. Susie, I don't know if you have the same experience with the ones here in Northern Virginia, DC, and Maryland, but I have some really strong opinions about the ones that we work with.
Yeah, definitely. We have strong relationships with both doctors who are concierge and also who take insurance as well. In our area, we're lucky we have a lot of home visiting doctors, and a lot of people don't even realize that's an option. And they're like, what? I don't have to, hire a van and shut my mom out and drive here and there. And really, at the point at which somebody is becoming less portable, to go through all of that, by the time they get to the doctor, they're not really at their baseline because they've transferred multiple times and been stuck in traffic and all of those kinds of things. And so frequently having that home visiting doctor can really see you more how you are in your home environment, and provide the best guidance to you.
Well, this is a good one, a good question from Lisa. I'm a certified nursing assistant who works for myself as a private duty caregiver. I've hit a ceiling in terms of earnings as a caregiver. I'm in a major city. How would I become an aging life care professional? Would somebody like Lisa eh, be able to transition her career into this space?
Well, I think she'd need to get some more education to qualify for certification. Um, I would strongly suggest that she call our main office and speak with somebody in the office. But she might be able to go to a community college and get her LPN as an entryway. Um, she may have a lot of that knowledge as working as a CNA for a long time, and that could be an entry point. But you would have to have a college degree in a field related to care management. So gerontology, social work, OT, PT, speech.
Now, out of curiosity, like, do any of your firms, like, if she reached out to, like, what I was going to also recommend, contact the national office, but just call up a few of the local care management practices in your region, because it seems to me like somebody like her could be like a great person to bring on as an apprentice, and maybe there's a firm out there that would help her get her education while she's assisting on cases. Does that ever, something like that ever happen?
Yeah, definitely. We've been approached to supervise MSWs in their placement. And I think Nina, you and I are both talk a lot at our national board meetings about bringing that next generation of care managers into the fold. Some of us who've been doing this for a long time are looking towards a retirement horizon, but really wanting to encourage younger folks to consider a career working with aging in any number of different pathways. So.
Yeah, absolutely. In ElderTree, we absolutely strongly believe in that too, Susie. 100%. We have an intern currently who is from George Mason and is a recreational therapy student. And so we do that as a company. We've had MSW students, but even if this individual, I think it was she, I believe, if she was interested in doing something like that or working maybe in a different role, I would encourage call care management companies. Put yourself out there, say, hey, my name is Emily. I'm interested. I want to work for your company. I want to know what you're doing. I want to learn from you. That get your foot in the door. People want to hear that you want to know what they're doing and learn from them. And even if it's not being an intern, maybe there's something else you can do and learn, and people will help you learn and do what it is that we do.
Great advice, Emily. And I think just to reiterate what Susie said, we are really excited to welcome professionals into the field. So within our association. So, if a student membership is right for you, great. That can be a relatively affordable, way into the field. And we'd welcome any inquiries along those lines, not just speaking for our practice, but also for the association.
Yeah, I'm glad
Okay.
you mentioned the student memberships, Nina, because if you're in school now or you enroll in a program at a community college, the student membership is very affordable, and some of the chapters will even cover that cost for you so that you really get to know the care managers in your area.
All right, I'm just looking at the clock, and we got about 5 minutes till the top of the hour. I'll try to do a few more questions, and then, folks, if you want to hang out afterwards and meet other folks in the audience, we're experimenting with these after parties. So when we're done, we can go to the breakout room and chat and keep the conversation going. But we'll try to get through a few more questions here. And I see the one that I'm surprised it took this long to come up. Augustina says, how much do aging life care managers charge for their service? And I know that that's an open-ended question here. So how do you answer that question broadly?
Well, there's certainly a range. Most care managers charge for their services on a fee-for-service basis. So the time that we spend on your behalf is billed, much like an attorney would be. Throughout the country, the rates for an aging life care manager range from $150 an hour to $250 an hour.
And I also would put in there that if you have long-term care insurance, it may cover fees. It'll have a annual cap as opposed to a daily cap for services, direct care services. So that's one thing that we help folks with is, going through that long-term care insurance policy. But for some policies, it's basically free money. It doesn't come out of the pot of money you have for your daily care. So it's basically free money from the long-term care insurance company. So that's another way that we can get get you introduced to our services and see how we can help you. And also area offices on aging sometimes have that kind of support.
Okay, I got two questions that and then we'll put a fork in it, and they both deal with finances. Um, and I'm going to do the easiest one first and the more complex one second. The first one says, can care managers work with financial advisors and attorneys to craft a plan for an individual?
Yes.
So you guys, that's common practice. So
Yeah, very
now,
often.
oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say very often when a financial advisor is doing a model to understand sort of what the person can afford and over what period of time, they will seek out our input about the level of intensity of care management that we anticipate over time, and then also the cost of care out in the market. So whether it's a care manager being involved or not, we can still give them those numbers to populate their models.
Great. And then the more complex one is there's several questions in chat and Q&A related to affordability. It's sort of like either myself or I can't afford services and navigating Medicaid and things of that nature. I I know it's tough because many care managers have an hourly rate, but do you find that you work with folks that might be on more of a fixed income or a budget, or what advice do you give when you get that phone call from a person that's clearly not able to budget for your services?
So I would say that we do get a lot of clients who are looking to do the Medicaid spend down, meaning that they're very close to meeting the Medicaid, but they have a little bit too much in the way of assets. And so sometimes we're looking at getting really close to that and like, are we there yet? We help them through that process. What we're able to do as life care professionals, we have done this before, right? So we are able to do in a very short period of time, although we may be billing for it, we're able to do in a very short period of time and access resources and use our knowledge and use our depth of a team to be able to do things very efficiently. When an individual from the outside, it would take them hours, days, weeks to try to figure out a very small portion of that, right? And so we are able to effectively make the process very efficient. And help them through all of that. So that's why you would want to look at doing it. And I understand it does seem very expensive. And you can also talk with your care manager that, hey, finances are a really big concern to me. And part of our role is to help advocate for your finances too. And so we talk to you about that. Okay, tell me when you billed $500, or tell me when you billed $100 or $1,000, so that we can keep that communication open with them.
Yeah,
Wow.
we're going to try to match them with the same services so that whatever their care needs are, they'll be sustainable, and being able to be familiar with the range of options in terms of communities and supports. If somebody's giving up their car and that's an expense to them, but they're thinking, well, then how will I get around? We know about the volunteer drive organizations in our area. So knowing what the different resources are that they may be able to tap into that are either free or very low cost.
All right, man, this is again not surprising, been an amazing discussion. Thanks to the three of you, but also thanks to the great questions that our audience they always surprise me. They ask very thoughtful questions and steer our conversation in some great directions. Anything that the three of you that any of the three of you wanted to share that you didn't have the opportunity to share before we kind of close this out, or if folks want to continue chatting, we can move into our little after party.
No, I would just encourage everybody, if you're considering an aging life care professional, to reach out. you know, and see what you think. Try talking to different professionals and get a feel for what it's like in the field and what people have to offer, and if it's a good fit for you.
I would also say all of our services are very flexible. So if just having a 1-hour consultation to find long-term care Medicaid bed is all you need, we do a lot of those, and I'm sure Nina and Emily do as well. And I say we're always trying to work ourselves out of a job. We want your parents to be more stable or your spouse to be more stable. So we're not trying to figure out how can I keep billing this family, but how can I help solve their problem as efficiently as possible.
I love it. Great. All right, folks. Well, this was great. And I really thank you all for taking the time out of the day to join us with this. And so what I'm going to do now, folks, is I'm going to open up the after party room, and if you can drop off this call entirely, and but if you'd like to go to the after party to meet other people in this discussion, and our panel members, you're welcome to join us. You just click on the little button that says breakout room there, and we'll hang out for 15 minutes or so and let people kind of get to know each other. So all right, so thanks a lot to all three of you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve, and to my fellow panelists. Thank you also very, very much.
Yeah, Steve probably hasn't mentioned the award that our local chapter gave to him at our conference, but he's a great supporter of aging care management.
It's behind the screen here. Yeah, I try to rub that every morning when I wake up. No, I can't believe it. Thank you. Thank you, Susie, and your chapter as well. So, all right. Okay, and then folks, if you are, yeah, you guys can take off. I know. If you can hear my voice and you want to jump into the breakout room and you can't find that button, uh, type into chat your name and I can manually move you over there. And actually, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna prompt everybody. I think there's a way for me to do that. I can just automatically move. I think there's a way for me to move everybody in. Um, all right. Well, here we go. Okay. So if you hear my voice and you haven't joined in the breakout room, I I think I can. All right. I'm gonna go jump in that breakout room, folks. Down at the bottom it says breakout rooms, so I'm gonna head over there myself. Okay. All right. I am going to. Looks like we got 4 people that aren't in the breakout, and I'm gonna just. Okay, so Kelly, I'll make this easier for those 4 by just prompting you if you want to join the breakout. Okay. All right.